Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Growth Leap. I'm your host, Michel Gagnon. We talk to pretty awesome business builders who are designing disruptive and meaningful companies. After a brief hiatus, we are back with a new episode of Growth Leap. Our guest today is an entrepreneur, investor, author, and mentor most German entrepreneurs look up to. Joerg Rheinboldt is Managing Director of APX, a joint venture between Axel Springer and Porsche. He founded Alando many years ago, which got acquired by eBay. Then he ran eBay Germany for 7 years. He's member of the Board of Bahlsen, co-founder of betterplace.org, and so much more. Most importantly, he's just a great human being who's definitely played a significant role in turning Berlin into a startup hotspot. In this episode, we talk about his experience in building and growing startups, both as entrepreneurs and as an investor. We talk about his investment strategy and his views on the startup ecosystem in the post-COVID era. Enjoy the show. Joerg Rheinboldt, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for inviting me, Michel.
Thanks for joining us. Joerg, you are Managing Director of APX, and we've seen over the past 10 or 20 years the rapid growth in the number of VC funds, incubators, accelerators. And sometimes it feels like VC money has become a bit of a commodity. So, I'd like to dive in and kind of zoom in on APX. I'd like for you to tell us a bit what APX is, but also how you differentiate yourself from other VCs.
Yeah, let's do that. So I think what differentiates us most is the stage we invest in. We are, I would say, a very early stage VC. We invest, or very early stage investor. Technically, we are not a VC because we don't have a fund with limited partners. We are a joint venture of Axel Springer and Porsche, and they gave us money. Actually, when you will be listening to this, we have made a press announcement that they actually gave us more money. So we have even more money to invest now. And we invest in very early stage companies, usually consisting of a team with an idea. And then we try to figure out, is this team the team to turn this idea into a success? And then we give them a little bit of money, work with them. And when they gain traction, we can give them more money.
I read an article a while back in the MIT Sloan School of Management, and they were covering a bit the impact of the coronavirus crisis on the VC world. And someone was saying that the crisis had two effects on VC. One is that it slowed commitments to VC funds that were in the funding raising stage, and it caused VCs to assess the financial conditions of their portfolio companies. So I'm interested to see how and if the pandemic has affected APX and also the companies that you have in your portfolio.
I think that was actually a good assessment that the Sloan School did. It's pretty similar to what we experienced. So after the first lockdown in March last year, we saw a slight slowing down in companies who wanted us as their initial investor. This took not too long, and then there were companies coming in, and we were able to do, I think, 26 investments from March until end of December last year. And looking at external investments into our portfolio, we saw kind of like a pause between March and summer, where we got exactly the feedback. Like some of the VCs said, no, we need to find out what is happening first, and we need to find out if we should save the money to invest into our existing portfolio. And there were very few follow-on rounds where we co-invested with others in our portfolio companies. With the business angels, it was even more interesting, I would say. Some disappeared. They just weren't. One I found in New Zealand. He was like, no, I don't invest right now. And others were just not interested in investing. And others said, no, I'll invest and continue to do like they did. And then for us, in the middle of the third quarter, it changed. Suddenly everyone wanted to invest again and was super interested in talking to the startups. The startups were super excited that they've got traction with investors again. So we did, between the second half of the third quarter and the winter holidays, we did 18 financing rounds, which was quite a stretch for our legal department that consists of one person called Sonia. But she managed, and I'm super, super proud of her. And we helped, of course, but it was intense.
And have you seen something different in terms of startups themselves, in terms of maybe their business model, maybe the new ones that they've joined your program recently, or maybe your existing, startups always have to pivot a little bit, but given the circumstances, have you seen something, I don't know, a pattern?
We saw some pivots. When we look at applications, we didn't see a lot of travel-related startups in the recent history. When we look at our portfolio, there's some companies who pivoted a little bit. Like, for example, there's a ride-sharing company that their initial idea was and still is to help the employees of larger companies in business parks or where the company itself is a business park to like ride share. Which when offices are closed, there are not that many people who want to ride share. And this business of theirs slowed down a little bit. But what they then did is they developed like a subset of their product for hospitals and elderly care homes where they are able to help the caretakers, I think is the English word,
Yep.
to have minimal contacts with the outside world. And by that, decreasing the risk to get infected by, so they don't need to take the public transport. So this works quite well for them.
These days, it feels like everybody's raising funding. Let's say when the world is a bit more normal, everybody's pitching, everybody is networking with investors. And you wrote a while back about the venture path and explained that not all startups are VC cases. And since we're talking about APX, and I'd be interested to learn from your experience, what's the common mistake that you see when startups decide to pursue a venture path?
So I think the venture path is you decide to exit your investors. And usually that means you will also exit your company. Like the thing everybody dreams of is an IPO. But then again, you can look at the number of IPOs in Europe and you probably get to the conclusion, maybe that's not the most likely outcome of my venture path. Nevertheless, I think we should aim to have more IPOs in Europe. And most venture financed companies, they will be sold to a strategic buyer. And that usually means that the investors exit and the founders also exit, or they exit partly and stay on board. But that's not the rule. Usually everyone exits and then people move on, which is nice, but not what for example, in Germany, we have this Mittelstand, and I'm on the advisory board of Bahlsen. That's a cookie company, family owned. The owners are called Bahlsen, and they have this cookie company in their family for more than 170 years. And although they are all very, very smart, when we talked about venture capital, intellectually, they fully understand how that works, but they always look at you and say, why would anyone start a company to sell it? That's weird. You should start a company to keep it. And when it's profitable, even more, you should keep it and earn money. And I think what is happening right now is that a lot of founders start to think about, maybe I shouldn't build my company to sell it. Maybe I should build my company to keep it. And what is then interesting is, how do you organize the financing structure for a company like this? Because you can't really use venture capital, because venture capital in most cases is exit oriented. So what I think that's going to happen is that we might see new kinds of capital to become available to founders and their startups that maybe has a little bit longer time for them to grow and become sustainable. Maybe there will be some kind of venture capital that is also happy with dividends. And I think with all the money that exists in Europe, there might be an opportunity now to create new kinds of financing organizations or companies that help different kinds of founders to build fast-growing, successful companies.
And with that trend and what you just mentioned, is it in the plans for APX to consider another type of financing as well?
For now, APX is exit-oriented investor, and this is really good. And we really like that. And that's how we pick the companies. And we always think about what can we do? How can we get into business relationships with the best founders that we can find? And maybe we'll do that, but this is like, we also discuss this. We discuss what is the future? What's the future of entrepreneurship? Because that's what we are interested in. And how can we help to shape it? And how can we, as the people running APX, how can we do the right things to support the best founders and make money and also have fun while doing so? Because that's also important.
Great. Talking about the right founders, what are the characteristics? Because you say you picked the right team. A lot of VCs or investors, like Warren Buffett, for instance, will say, pick the right car.
That's true. Yeah. And Warren Buffett says, you should invest your money into companies that can be run by monkeys. The only thing you need to consider is the stage of the company. I think Warren Buffett invests at another stage than we do. So sure. when he invests in Coca-Cola, I agree that Coca-Cola should have a very, very profitable, proven business model that can only get better if you have smart management. When we invest in a group of people who want to build a company. So it's all about them. And history has told us that when they start to turn their dream into a reality, or I don't even have to talk about it that romantically, they have an idea, a dream, vision, however you want to call it. And then they need to translate it into a set of hypotheses or quantify and qualify it. And then they need to turn this into reality in a granular process, step by step, and learn what they are doing and how they can turn the different dimensions of what they want to do into realities, which usually doesn't work in a way where you make a plan, execute it, and get exactly the results that you planned. Very rare. And then we need to figure out, are they able to do this? Are they able to live with the results that they create and then adapt to what actually needs to be done? And what we also have learned is that most companies or most teams we invest in, or not most, quite some teams we invest in, change what they do over the first 6 months that they do what they do. And some do it out of figuring out that actually doesn't work. But others do it also out of learnings about what actually works even better than what they had in mind in the first place. What we do is we are with them while they do this, and we try to provide shortcuts to them while they do this. Shortcuts meaning access to mentors like you who spend time with them and share what you did in the past, and then maybe something they should avoid or something they should also try. This is also what I do quite a lot every day, spending time with the founders. And we then help them to turn the idea they had into something that's more tangible and also into something that has traction, or it's growing, depending on how you want to call it. And then find more people who want to invest in that company. And then I think the more grown up a company becomes, the more Warren Buffett is right. Because when they are really huge, it doesn't matter that much anymore who are all the people doing this, because the chance and risk is put on a lot more shoulders than when it's just 3 friends or 3 people who want to start a company.
Given the long experience that you have in picking teams, what are the key things that you look for in a, let's say, winning startup founding team?
So it's a mix. We look for green flags and yellow and red flags. The green flags, when we think, this is a little bit abstract and making it a little bit easy. But what we like is when we ask a team, usually that's 3-4 people, describe your idea. Then one should start to tell a story. Another one should open a computer and a spreadsheet and say, look, I made a model. And the third one should be I productized this. This is how it looks. Here's a click dummy I just made from a piece of paper and a paperclip. And this, I think, are elements that have to be in a team. We like more than one person because we strongly believe that any company needs to be run by more than one person. So we want to see several people. And then these are the green flags we look for. Do they get along? Are they aligned? Do they have a good way to talk about things where they don't have the same opinion? Do they have can they see weak signals, and how do they deal with them? And how do they pivot or change their idea? How do they adapt? And the orange and red flags are when they are not aligned, when we see that they actually don't have the same opinion, when they don't take each other seriously, when it's not at eye level and that's a problem. Sometimes it's not at eye level and that's not a problem. Yeah, and this is what we are looking for. And that's why, for example, during our investment decision or selection process, we call it, at no time the teams pitch to us. They obviously send us something that's their idea. Anyone who's interested can look it up on our website, what we ask for. And when we find that interesting, we get into a dialogue. And then we do like digital questions. We ask them to do a video where we want to see them answer some questions. And then we have 2 meetings. One meeting where we call it the venture development session, where we just ask them about pivots, weak signals, how they learned when something is not working or working extremely well, how they adapted, how they changed. And then also we try to find out, are they interested in other people's experiences? Do they want to learn? Do they want to change? And that can be good, can also be bad. If they change all the time, then it's also not good if there's no persistence in what they do. So that's something that we find out in a conversation a lot better than in questionnaires or something. And then we do another session, if we like that, where we discuss financing strategy with them, where we ask them, so how much money do you think you need to get this, to build this? And when do you need it? And try to figure out how well they have thought about fundraising and capital needs and structure and what kind of investors they want to have at what point.
I want to go back to the founders and the skill set. There's a lot of tactical advice available for startups today. How to acquire customers, how to pitch investors, how to hire. But I think for anybody who's managed a company, and you're definitely the right person to talk to, the challenge is often to bring every part of the business together. Make sure that you execute and deliver smoothly. And I think it was Ben Horowitz who wrote, the only thing that prepares you to run a company is running a company.
That's so true.
That's how I experienced it. Based on the founders that you see and have seen, what are the common skill or set of skills that you feel are frequently lacking and hampering their success?
First, I think there's one shortcut, though, to run a company, and that is mentoring. Having mentors or people you can exchange your needs with at eye level in a very trusting relationship where you can share, this is how I did it didn't work, or this is how I did it and it worked. Creating networks that do this, I think is a really, really valuable shortcut. So I think is the other way to improve running a company next to trying everything yourself. Using other people's experience, that can be a very, very helpful shortcut. And then I think an issue is I would always call it like the building of debt. There can be multiple ways you can build up debt. There can be, for example, managerial debt that you build by not creating a clear organization and not creating transparency about roles, about responsibilities, about the field of influence. I think people need to know, why am I here? What can I do? What am I allowed to do? What is expected from me? What can I expect from others? Who's responsible for what? What are all these people doing? Show me an org chart. Show me what people are doing. A lot of teams really don't spend enough time to create this clarity or to come up with the right organization. And I think there are tipping points in organizations. I think you need to work on this when you're more than 4 people. You need to work on this when you're more 12 to 14 people. You need to work on this again when you're around 30 to 40 people, then around 80, I think, and then again and again and again. And I don't think anyone can do all these things. When you are a very early founder, you might be really good up to 50, 60, 80 people. And then you need to learn. You need to get external input on how to do it and take the company to the next level. When you are very good at running a multi-thousand person organization, it's super weird when you are 6 people again. And all your tools don't work anymore because you actually have to do it. And you are in the room with the people who have to do it. That's also interesting. So I think both might be successful, but it's something that really they need to figure out, okay, how do I have to do this? How can I do this? And how can I get someone to help me do this?
I listened to a podcast a while ago. He was the CEO of Spotify, and he was saying that, being the CEO of an early stage startup and then CEO of 10, 15, 50 or 100 people company, it's the same title, but it's a completely different job, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah. And especially if you are able to hire brilliant people. And then when you are like 6 people and everyone does everything and there's like total transparency on who does what, and there's like a daily adjustment of who works on what thing, that is fine. But when you're like 20 people and you have to organize who does what, then suddenly you start to micromanage and you have to let go and you have to allow other people who are brilliant at what they do. You have to allow them to do it and you have to watch them do it, which is super hard and extremely painful for me, at least, when it means like, okay, I have to let go. I really love doing this. And now we hired this brilliant person who can do it better than me, which is obviously okay because they are way more qualified to do it. And then still you have to let go. And then for the first weeks, you do this together. Then you turn into like they do it and you watch them do it. And then you're not needed anymore. And then you have to find something else to do, which I think is an interesting phase. And that's basically how, for example, when we built eBay in Germany, that's how we tried to manage the company to make us, redundant as fast as possible in all the roles we had.
I want to pick your brain and maybe borrow your crystal ball. We've talked a bit about the impact of the pandemic on the VC world, also the startups. Do you see anything? I mean, there's a lot of hype around Clubhouse these days. What do you see as the most promising verticals, ideas for the next few years?
I think there's multiple. So first of all, I think that Corona is horrible and it's really bad. And there's so much like pain and that's really sad. Acknowledging this, I think it also did some things that are irreversible and not too bad. Like, for example, speeding up digitization like crazy, making virtual organizations a reality and creating a lot of opportunities for super fast growing ideas and companies. So I think if it's like a short-term thing, if anyone would crack that nut, it's serendipity. People need more serendipity in their lives. And I think that's one of the reasons why Clubhouse is going crazy. Like while we are talking, I just put my cell phone on something soft because it was vibrating because of all the Clubhouse invites coming in to join some conversations. And I think people miss this connecting with other people. And what Clubhouse can offer right now is this closeness. You are close with people. You can talk to them. You can be in a dialogue or you can listen in depending on what you're interested in. So all things that work with this, like connection, that's interesting. Serendipity in all dimensions is interesting. And then I think so we at APX, we talk about the past, which is before Corona, the now normal, which is while we have to live with Corona and there's no vaccination or medication available. And then we all hope that there will be a new normal after the Corona times, where I think there will be a long-term new normal, which is super interesting to think about because then everything will have like leveled in the new digital time accounts, how we spend our time and how we work and how we live and how we learn and how we consume media and information with the reality that's coming back, where you can go to restaurants again and attend concerts and meetings and meetups. In between, I think there will be something like a very crazy post-traumatic and a little bit traumatic period where we will be kind of like set free. And I know that I will go to a lot of restaurants. I will go to a lot of events, live concerts, multi-day hikes, traveling the world. I know that I won't be able to do all these things, but I think this will be every human will kind of be like unleashed. And then there will be, hopefully, and that's the optimist in me, like an explosion of culture, an explosion of art, an explosion of people in the streets doing nice things, hopefully some celebrations of life. And then the new normal will come. And I think there's lots of opportunities in there for founders to figure out what can I do with this explosive time. All this, the optimist says we will figure out how to win over Corona, and maybe use this unleash time to establish some fast growing companies, services, ideas. And then there will be a new normal where a lot of the companies that exist today will still exist, and where a lot of new opportunities and old opportunities will be back, because I think people will be traveling. Maybe, and that's the even more optimistic Jörg talking now, maybe there will be some consciousness around sustainability where people say, maybe I don't have to fly around the planet several times per year, or maybe I don't need like a polluting car to travel around. Maybe I can walk or move around differently. So there we'll see how that will be.
APX announced last June that you were doubling down on your mental health strategy called mental mining. You give all new founders joining the program coaching sessions, around balancing mental well-being. Can you talk to us a bit more about the program?
Yeah, so this comes from the thought that running a company is quite exhaustive. It's also super rewarding and a lot of fun, but it can be a little bit too much at times, where we really want to support our founders to be high performance, but not so that they burn out, because a burnout is, I think, quite common in especially young founders when it's the first time they really fall in love with an idea. And then you can work on it 24/7 because it's so much fun and it feels so good. But then you figure out, I don't have friends. I'm super one-dimensional. Maybe you even get into like a real physical burnout, which is not good, because that getting out of this is super hard. So we thought that if we want to invest in sustainable companies, and I don't mean this like in only eco-friendly sustainable companies, but sustainable in the sense of the word, that they can grow for a long time with resilient founding teams and resilient organizations, sustainable business models, holistically working companies, we need not only to help them grow or figure out how to organize, figure out how to run their technology, but also help them to like recharge their batteries, find out what is good, what is maybe not so good for them, listen to weak signals that they might not be figuring out, and also helping them to get their life to organized, which is also a challenge for us here, because all people working at APX, I think, like working here a lot. And I have a lot of young colleagues where APX is their first job. And we also figured that we need we don't stop them, but we, for example, having rules like you can send messages to anyone at any time if you feel like, but you can't expect answers. So you can only expect answers to emails Monday to Friday from, depending on whom you are sending to, but like the general agreement is 9 to 6. There are some people who work a little bit longer. And then we have like escalation channels with everyone. If you really need something, you can send them a message through a channel that really gets through no matter when. And on the weekends, we usually have weekend. We still can send messages to each other because I like to work on the weekend, or when I have an idea, I want to be able to send a message. But I don't expect anyone to read it. I expect everyone to read it like on Monday. And these are very simple things, but there's also more advanced ways to think about how to calm down, how to like violence-free communication, how to bring your point across without, in a very effective way of figuring out what someone needs and not what they want, can be very helpful if you want to live in groups of humans or build companies in groups of humans. So there's a lot of tools in the toolkit to work on this. And I think it's similar to, you need to know how to deal with humans and yourself, like you need to know how to deal with technical infrastructure, growth patterns, algorithms, something you can learn.
I think, you've talked about burnout. It's still a bit taboo for some people. And I think also burnout usually happens like a slap in the face. Right? Yeah. You work hard, you're in it, and then you wake up one day and bam. So yeah, it can be a bit difficult. And one of the things that I've discussed with a previous guest on the podcast was there's a bit of a glorification of hustling.
Yeah, and we always say busy is the new stupid, because like being busy means you've lost control and you don't own your time. And we talk about like how to organize your time, and we don't go so far to tell them, and you could apply this to your life as well. But we talk to the founders about how to organize their time. So, for example, I think you need, and this is from, I forgot his name, so I can't quote him. It's maker time and manager time, where like maker time.
This is Paul Graham, huh?
Yeah, Paul Graham, that's him, exactly. Where you need longer periods of time to either write something or code something, or really spend a longer period of time on thinking or working on something. And then manager time is this short periods of time spent on things you can do really fast, where you need to coordinate with someone and then do it. And as we are humans, usually switching is not so easy. So I can't personally switch from manager mode, where I have like 5 meetings in 3 hours and then sit down and immediately start to write a deep thinking blog post. I just can't do it. First, I need like 20 minutes of nothingness, or of taking a walk, and then I can get into in another kind of flow. But like switching flow states is super hard. But in order to like learn that, to figure out when do I need which flow state, you first need to like know, oh, there are flow states. Oh, I can manage them. And I should have different ones. That sounds interesting. And then we have like people coming here and talking about, okay, there's something called flow states. There's also other names for these things. This is what they do with you. This is how you might be able to get into them. This is how you can do it. And this is how you definitely can't do it. And that's, I think, really meaningful information and capabilities for founders. So those is also something in the mental mining.
It's a great program. If we switch gear a little bit, I'm really interested because you've done quite a lot and you're still doing quite a lot, and you've founded betterplace.org and you've been involved in other impact related type of organization. Can you just tell us a bit about Better Place, but also what kind of drove you to get involved?
We founded Better Place 13 years ago, so a really long time. And back then, I was working with a friend, Stefan, on M10. That was our investment company. We were like 2 business angels investing together. And we both thought a lot about like kind of giving something to others. With my Alando co-founders, we had donated money to a project that one of us had selected, and he went there for 4 weeks and just like made sure that they actually do what they promised with the money. It was like they built an orphanage somewhere. And then I always wanted to figure out, how does donation work? Because I had learned that when I donate to certain organizations, actually they don't get the money, but like the fundraiser gets quite a large share of the money. So this I didn't like. And then a friend of mine, he called me and said, hey, Jörg, because I had a conversation with him earlier, he said, hey, we talked about saving the world and that you are interested in helping. I have a friend who really wants to do it, and you have to meet him and then see if you want to support him. And then I met Till Behnke a few days later, who's the founder of Better Place. And we talked for an hour about what his idea is to create this fundraising platform for projects with a like function design that makes it easier to be transparent, easier to be very well organized and low overhead or transparent overhead. And I like that like game dynamics approach a lot, where it's easier to be better. And then I was like, okay, I'll invest. Let's do this together. Let's co-found this. And then Stefan also wanted to invest. And then we started to build Better Place. And then we met, I think 6 weeks after we had started, we met another organization who wanted to do the same thing called The Platform. And we met the founders. And then something happened that I didn't know from my startup world, where we had a meeting. And after, I think 30 minutes, Stefan, who was one, they are all called Stefan, luckily, so I don't have to remember that too many names. He was one of the founders of The Platform, said, hey, I think we should do this together. And then we shook hands and did it together, which was quite cool because we merged the two organizations. We had like 10 people. They were like 18. We merged them and then suddenly had like this quite large organization. We all put some money in and we were able to like grow very fast. And now since I think 3 years, Better Place is like self-sustainable. So we don't have to do major donations every year to help it grow to the next level. Now it's growing very well. Like there's like around 10 million of donation volume per month, which is good. I think there's still so much room to grow. And we actually, the way we built it was we built something called gut.org. That's like a holding company. That's a GAG. It's a share-based company that's a registered nonprofit, which is a super special legal construction because you have the best of both worlds. You have the non-profit certification needs that you have to fulfill, and you have the administrative transparency of a share-based company, which is also like super hard. We said this is really cool because that shows the outside world that we really want to be transparent. And there's nothing you can hide in an organization like this. We didn't want to. And then we created this and then put on this holding structure, we put betterplace.org. And now there's betterplace.org, which is the fundraising platform for the registered nonprofit organizations. There's betterplace.me. That's a fundraising platform for people who want to fundraise. Then there's Better Place Lab. That's a think tank or think and do tank, as they say, that continuously works on how can doing good be done better, which is a really, really cool thing to do. Then there's BOOM. BOOM used to be like the former Google campus here in Berlin. The Berliners among the listeners might remember, there was something about the Google campus. Google decided, when they decided not to do the Google campus, they gave the whole thing to two organizations, Better Place and Karuna, and told them, use this and figure out how do we want to live together. And we'll let you do what you need to do in order to find out how we want to live together in urban areas and in general as people from different backgrounds. So this, I think, is a really cool location, which doesn't matter right now because locations are not so in vogue during Corona, but it's a really good like crystallizing point of the future of society, I think. And then there's more. Right now we are discussing, can we use gut.org as like a platform for even more impact investing activities together with other people, which is a super interesting topic because back then when we started A Better Place, this let's do impact investing where you actually can get a return and do something good, that was too much for everyone. So we decided, no, let's not go this path. Let's just say we'll donate the money. We never want it back. We want Better Place or gut.org to be sustainable. We want it to be as eternal as possible. And maybe one day we'll figure out how this like impact investing and maybe not even getting back the money, but using it like a yo-yo where you like use the capital in one company or organization, let them grow. They give the money back and put it into the next company. And that's what we are thinking about right now, which is also really cool and is part of my evenings, figuring out how to do this together with my co-founders.
Before I let you go, any last advice for our startup founders or scale-up leaders that you think, in challenging times, keep an eye on this?
Yeah, connect with others. You're not alone. And I think that's so important. Connect with people and connect with people you dream of being connected with. They might reply. Most likely they will. And they will be super happy that someone connects with them, especially in these times.
Jörg, thank you so much for your time. Where's the best place for our listener to follow you? Is this Twitter or?
Yeah, they can follow me on Twitter. My name there is Jörg. You can also, I started to write a newsletter. The address is Jörg, my first name, JOERG.substack.com.
Perfect. We'll make sure we put that in our show notes. Thank you so much for your time. Truly appreciate. Good luck for the next phases.
Thank you.
Thanks again for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. And as usual, you can find the show notes at stunena.com. Also, if you want to accelerate your startup growth and build something meaningful, well, check out our Growth Leap for Tech Startups online course at growth.stunena.com. Thanks a lot.